Hello, everyone. This is Chad Frischmann, and I'm on a quest to find the most impactful solutions that not only help to solve climate change, but move humanity closer to a regenerative future. Climate change is the greatest challenge humanity has ever faced. This is not an alien attack or a monster from the deep seas. It is a crisis of our own making. Nearly everything we do as a species, everything our economy produces and consumes, emits greenhouse gases that are warming the planet and causing catastrophic climate change. And climate change impacts everything else, from increasing poverty and food scarcity to climate refugees, devastating biodiversity loss, and destruction to ecosystems and human systems that we are only beginning to glimpse of today. So, we have to change everything. And this is where it gets interesting. If we have to change everything, then it can be an opportunity to build a better future by design, a regenerative future that benefits humanity and the planet. Welcome to Chad's Climate Quest, where we will be talking to some planetary-grade thinkers and doers who are pouring their energy, wisdom, and intellect to solving this great challenge in ways that benefits all.
On today's episode, we're welcoming Matt Siranovich and Angela Bermudo, co-founders of FutureQuest, an organization whose audacious and really not just mission is nothing short of creating the greatest climate-saving effort of our time. Wow. I thought I did that with Project Drawdown, but I want to hear more about what you all are doing. And what it already does is fund, launch, and accelerate exponential public good quest for our planet. Now, before we get into our discussion with Matt and Angela, I want to do a little bit of a few disclosures and a little bit of housekeeping. But first and foremost, I want to remind everybody that this is the first episode of Chad's Climate Quest. And as you no doubt have already figured out, it's my first Twitter Space podcast. So please be patient with all of these technical glitches and smile at all of the guests that are soon to be coming. I bet you there's going to be a bunch. And feel free to send along any constructive feedback to help improve the show as we go on in the weeks, months to come. Second disclosure I want to make really clear. I am actually a founding advisor to FutureQuest, and FutureQuest is our gracious hosts for this Twitter space. So, I mean, to be honest, I'm already a little biased to this solution, but I will try to be not to be too easy and not too hard. All right? So finally, we'll have about a 30-minute discussion. And if you have any questions, please tweet them in the thread. If we have some time at the end, we can open the floor to folks listening in. Just request to speak at the end of the discussion. So thank you all who are joining in today. Really appreciate it. I'm thrilled to welcome you on my Climate Quest. So hi Matt, hi Angela. Thanks for coming. Thanks for hosting. And thanks for dealing with some of those technical difficulties that we started with.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, great. And to start with, can you please just share, I know a lot of folks who are coming on to this call they might know you from, your work at FutureQuest, as you heard earlier about from the gentleman talking about the dragon, where we'll get to in a bit, and for future horizon. But there's a lot of folks who probably don't know who you are. So maybe you can share a brief intro of who you are as human and what brought you together. How did you meet and make it all happen?
Cool. Angela, go
the
first.
abbreviated version.
Yep. I want to hear a version from each of you because I suspect there's going to be a slightly different version. It's going to be a little bit interesting.
Matt, you start.
So basically I've gone through a very brief marketing career, then art. Then I started my first startup when I was 20, which was a platform for artists called Dropper. We ended up having quite a lot of different, and it was perhaps the first multimedia platform for artists that has led me through London, then into Silicon Valley. Then we started another startup out of that. Eventually, I went into kind of consulting, helping other people launch their projects. We've had launched probably 150 startups.
Wow.
In various space, often accelerated them from sort of 8-figure to a 9-figure valuation. That's sort of the sweet spot of the organization. It's called FutureQuest. And
Matt, 1 second. FutureQuest? What the heck's that mean?
FutureQuest is, there's a whole long personal story that I have with that name, but that I'm not going to go into right now. Maybe next time. However, it did at the time meant to me like a trail to light based on that story. And later it turned out it's the name of the tribe that used to be where some kind of North San Francisco and Marin counties in California. And so the company remained named after that. And Yeah, so then at some point with some friends, we had this idea to start a Burning Man camp focused on sustainability and kind of envisioning a sustainable future. So not just like talking about things initially, but rather thinking what would make a sustainable future cool? How could we like dress? How would we react? How would we, what would our culture be? And to kind of like cross inspire each other and also have some fun with it. It was a Burning Man camp that happened a couple of times, and we all loved the energy there. Then we had this idea to start an event series called Future Horizon. I don't know if Ahmed is here, but he suggested the name. And so we started a series called Future Horizon. The first event was actually a really weird time. It was mid-March 2020, so basically when the pandemic came to the West, and the market crashed on the second or third day of the event. It was a whole thing. People arrived there without the pandemic, and they were living into the pandemic, which meant a lot of people did not leave, and they just decided to stay. We were on a beach in the Caribbean, and a lot of people stayed for a couple of weeks or a few weeks, and we ended up thinking up a lot of ideas, and the entire focus of the gathering was on envisioning, building, and celebrating a sustainable future. That's kind of like the description we use. And so everyone was kind of left in this space thinking, okay, this is how we can solve it, and here are our ideas. And because everyone suddenly had so much time and nowhere to go, a lot of amazing things started happening. But anyway, going into that story, that's kind of like, I would say, my story and how I arrived here. Eventually, we thought a FutureQuest would be a great idea to bring out of this beautiful community. However, I think it was also in 2020. That's after the first experiment. So we basically we brought a bunch of friends on the beach in the Caribbean and we had this beautiful gathering. And I was in.
I'm just picturing you on that beach heading down and then after Burning Man camp. Man, I'm kind of familiar with that because, hey, that's where I first met you all, was at one of the Future Horizon events on a beach in Rio just earlier this year. And I think that's kind of why I fell in love with you both and the work that you're doing at Future Horizon. And we're going to get into the question in a second, but I want to turn it over to Angela and see what her origin story is. I want to know, like, what happened when you first met Matt.
Well, I was just headed there, so she's probably better to tell it.
So I'm going to take you back a few years. Kapampangan, which is an indigenous community in the Philippines, pre-colonization. My own journey has really been influenced by my own experience. I've been very focused on trying to redesign different systems that we have within society so that people don't have to do the extraordinary to be able to pursue happiness, fulfillment, and success when it comes to their lives. And so that had very different realizations, worked for government, worked with IGOs, worked in the entertainment industry. Eventually, I found my stride really doing more purposeful work and thinking about the ways that technology was affecting us as a society. And so I started working on a think tank in stealth mode and started running experiments that were focused around creating more diversified and equitable decision-making processes. And that sounds super serious, but it was actually really fun. We did experiments removing people's identity when they started to collaborate with each other, etc. And this was around the time that Matt and I actually met. I always tell people we met each other in the middle of the pandemic on a castle wall in Prague. And it wasn't even a meeting for the two of us. I was tagging along with an ex that had a meeting with Matt. And we just, we didn't come into it expecting to have that type of meeting of minds or anything like that. Two people who felt very strongly and passionately about the way that we should be thinking about creating a more sustainable future. And at the time we were thinking about sustainable, obviously party line has kind of changed a little bit. We're talking regenerative future instead of sustainable because arguably nothing that we're doing right now should be sustained. We should be thinking about creating those new models. And I found what Matt was doing to be very beautiful. And we were trying to think how we weren't even trying to think how we could bring what we were doing together, But eventually it naturally kind of hit that stride. And so we hosted another Future Horizon event in Skinny. And, so far, Future Horizon had some pretty significant impact. It raised over 200 million through the organizations that it supported over 15 plus organizations that were focused on the environmental or the social aspect, all kind of drumming up to the goal of trying to correct climate change. And, there was a moment where we kind of really looked at each other and asked ourselves, were we creating the type of impact that was needed, at scale to contribute effectively to this problem? And, we had to be real with ourselves and say no. So we had to figure out a more scalable way to be able to do this. And so we identified where we were the strongest, not just as individuals, but as a community. And that's really how FutureQuest was born.
Cool. And, I'll tell you, I really love Future Horizon, and I consider myself part of the community that you created there. And for those of the folks who know me, I've been talking about regenerative future for a long time now. And how do we move from sustainability to regeneration? So when I first heard Future Horizon, I was really excited to participate in the event. And I think creating that community and being part of that community you created. And I just want to do a little plug here. I've gone to a lot of events over the years, a lot of different conferences. And going to the event that you all created was one of the best events I have ever been to. And that's damn sure honest about that, totally honest. And I actually, you listeners who know me, I don't usually join WhatsApp group. I could hardly get on Twitter Spaces, as you just found out. I'm not a social media guy. But I'll tell you what, I joined their WhatsApp group and I check it every day. That's how strong this community is. And that's why I'm so happy that you created Future Horizon and then are birthing FutureQuest from that. And I'm honored to have been part of, your founding advisory group. But I want to know a little bit more. So Matt, maybe you could tell me what exactly is FutureQuest? And specifically, what is it and how is it going to actually help solve climate change? The greatest challenge humanity has ever faced. What is it? I mean, I know it's on your advisor, but tell the audience.
I take it that's I'll take it then.
That was really good, yeah.
So I want to make two corrections there. I think we need to have two corrections. One, yes, we were absolutely at that castle to have beers and some Śliwowica, which is a moonshiny beverage. And then the conversation transpired. But we were there to talk impact because we were there, I think, to talk about the UN, making like a movie for the UN. So it was definitely that was the undertone. Second correction is we did not raise 200 million. I think organizations born within our community have raised 250 million. Just wanted to correct that in case someone was like, wait a minute. And so I just want to make that clear. However, it has been an incredible amount of action that has happened, and we were just amazed by it after the first gathering. Then we did the second gathering. So there was the Caribbean, there was Dominican Republic first, and there was Future Horizon Tuscany. We had a castle we were at a beautiful castle in Tuscany, gathered there. It was an incredible event, higher profile guests, speakers than before and whatnot. And we've looked at the gathering and the effect of the gathering right after, and we like to measure it in two ways. Is it some of the most meaningful and beautiful time that we have had? And have we made an actual measurable difference in terms of regeneration climate? And after that event, we kind of looked at it and we're like, things changed, right? Like at the beginning of the pandemic, I think it was much easier for people to get together and work on those things and make a difference. And then suddenly, things were a bit more loose. Everyone was back to their business and it was a bit harder. So we thought, what could we do to really amplify the difference that we make? And we spent a few months chatting about the potential concept for it. And then at our following event, so the third main gathering of Future Horizon, which was in Rio de Janeiro, we decided to announce an idea. And we announced it through a pretty terrible mock-up animation or a video of the concept. And it got an amazing feedback of our closest community, including people wanting to invest in it and whatnot. And we're like, okay, we've got something here. So what we proposed and what FutureQuest is in essence an answer to our question, what can we do to really drive sustained and continuous change in order to really make an impact, feel like we've made the difference and we're not just organizing incredible events and gatherings, right? And that we're executing maybe in several lanes now. Been lucky to build a bit more of a beautiful team around this concept. We've raised a little bit of money. And now we're launching kind of multiple planes of tackling the issue. And primarily, we are building a community. So FutureQuest primarily is a community. We already have this beautiful core community of people who range from indigenous leaders to investors, entrepreneurs, billionaires, philosophers. It's a very, very diverse group of people. And now we're building out Web3 side of the community. You might be seeing now there is, the story that we shared just earlier at the beginning of the story. It's actually based on that crappy video that we shared at our event a couple of months ago. It's the new version of it. Teases what's going to happen. You can see it on a pinned tweet on our Twitter. This begins like a story that we'll tell is it too late? Is it too late for us to fix what happened and what's there? And so that is an exercise in building a community. So we invite you all to join, to have a conversation, to join those quests. We are building a structure to empower people to make a difference through those quests. Often maybe you've seen various projects, great ideas, that happen during an event, or on Twitter, someone throws an idea and people get really excited to make it happen. Recently, it happened with a certain DAO, maybe, that, a lot of people get excited, there's a lot of potential, and suddenly there is not a good way to execute on it. There isn't structure, there isn't enough support, there isn't enough money fast enough, and whatnot. We hope to supply those elements to the community that's thinking about solutions. So the second part of it is the acceleration. We hope to take those ideas, existing or new, and do what we can to support them becoming real projects that drive impact. And the third layer of FutureQuest is a fund. So we are building an impact fund where we will be injecting funds into those organizations, vetted by on our framework, on which we will be working with Chad as well. Maybe it would be great to flip the table for a moment, actually, and also ask you about your experience there, or maybe it will be revealed in next episode, since I'm seeing we're already past half the hour. But
I'm excited. I'm excited to work with you, Matt, and I really think that what you're offering with generative intelligence, the work that we're doing and doing with Regen Intel to evaluate these potential projects is right in line. Definitely get into Regen Intel later in the series. But I want to just get a handle on this. Maybe Angela, you can jump in here. Like, when you say quest, when I think of a quest, I harken back to my Dungeon and Dragons days. I'm thinking about my joyous adventure. And again, I agree with you. Joyously adventuring to solve climate change. Again, that's right in line with what we need in this world. So, but I'm thinking about rolling dice and questing for saving the village from the goblins and all these other things, right? What is a quest? What actually is it? And how do I get to launch one? Do I have to get, part of adventures?
Yeah, absolutely. You and I share some shared experience there. Little do people know, I myself play D&D, as well as some RPGs. So quests are very familiar. To put it simply, basically quests are projects, right? And you can think of that in the frame of like campaigns, projects, startups. And that's kind of like the name that we've decided to go with. Now, the way that it works, and if you're on our Discord already, you might have seen some murmurings about it, but we'll be releasing soon an ability for anybody on the Discord to basically submit a quest. So that's the beginning process of us starting to take an input from the community. And then it kind of goes through a review process with our council as well as our advisory boards to review which quest we want to put forward to the community for a vote. Once that gets put to the community, then the community gets to up or down vote whichever quest we want to support. So I'm going to take it a step back and kind of walk you through a roadmap of where we are right now. Really, where we are when we think about quests is we're in what we're calling a pre-pilot phase. And what that's helping us to do is to identify like the different needs of the different quests so that we can build a platform that supports that. Now, our hope is that as we enter into the fall, we begin what we're calling a 10 by 10 program. So in the 10 by 10 program, you're really looking at focusing on one quest per month. Now, why are we doing that? The reason why we're doing that is to help to inform both our investment and impact strategy, as well as to fine tune our process to determine like, how can we really help to support and accelerate and scale these projects, right? And then after that, then we open up to the RFP process. So that's just a little briefer on what quests are and how we kind of see the roadmap in terms of how we'll be taking those in. I will point out, which I think is really important from an empowerment conversation, is that you don't have to be somebody from a scientific background. You don't have to be a higher level person to present a quest. I think that's really important from an accessibility standpoint for us to talk about where these can originate from. At the moment, a very important question that we've been getting asked is, do we have a regional focus and do we have a size focus? At the moment, not yet. I think after the 10 by 10, we'll be able to determine like what are the areas that we want to focus on. But first, we want to listen and we want to see what comes in.
I think it's so cool. I've been saying for so many years now, when people ask me, what can I do to help solve climate change? And I say the same thing, choose your own adventure. Remember those books you used to open up and you'd like pick one way and direction, eventually find your way. But if we set our marker on the horizon to where we actually want to go, that regenerative future, and then we choose our adventure to get there. And that's why I just love that you use the word quest. It's different than campaign or project or like all the other words. Quest, it really gets the people galvanized to take action and to do so with fun, that sense of adventure. And so I really applaud you for using that concept, and I think it's really cool. And there's some unique things about this approach, and maybe actually you could speak a little bit about what you think is super unique about this, and really succinctly, because we're running out of time. Everybody who's listening, if you want to stay on, please feel free to. I'd love to hear the conversation. And why do you think this model is going to work?
Yeah, I'd actually like to turn it over to Matt, and I also want to give him credit for coming up with the concept of Quest when we were trying to determine what we would call these. He came up with it from like sort of like game theory and thinking of it in that way, and it flowed really well. So maybe Matt, you want to weigh in on why we think that this is, I think, not just a unique approach, but why do we think it's going to work compared to everything that we have seen out there? And I think it's before I open up the floor to Matt, I have to point out that this isn't, if you're familiar with the private industry, which, we work very much with, this isn't a pick us over others situation. We really think that like, as we move into this next phase, it's really going to be a matter of like collaboration for us to all come together, right? Like we're all the way that we're all going to make it is if we all come together.
Matt, do you want to jump in?
Cool. Sure. Yeah. Well, let's make it quick. Well, basically, firstly, we're laughing internally that the only way to pronounce FutureQuest is FutureQuest, and that's the vibe. FutureQuest, and so that's the kind of vibe that we decided to embody, and why. There are so many ways that you can brand something that for climate, but if you look at where we are, is we don't see much green. It's not all trees and plants and illustrations of various foliage and so on. We're just trying to match a few things that we've been observing and a bunch of research we've had into this brand and give it longevity. So firstly, this project for us is a project that we see starting to take off fast. And I know in a Web3 world, it might sound crazy, but we see that as a several years plus of a project. We've got a 10-year longer roadmap, and we do realize, and we're purposefully launching and starting this announcement and starting what we're doing in a bear market, so that we can build it out, test things now, and then grow and raise and avoid collapsing because of too fast growth too early, which happens to so many projects in this space. And so we are starting now with longevity in mind and with adoption in mind. And for us, that means that ideally this project speaks to pretty much everyone, and the conversation is extremely divided. If we have people in refi, if we have people to come to our events, if we have people to come to generally climate gatherings, they will all sort of share a similar worldview and observations, and the conversation will be about details. What is the temperature decrease that we can expect and what can we do about it? But everyone will agree that climate change is something to tackle. Globally, unfortunately, we're not there, and we cannot really expect that probably 80% of people will care even if their front lawn will be on fire. Therefore, what we are thinking is creating something that is, even if you don't care about climate, it actually sounds exciting. It's fun. And it's something that you would want to partake in because it makes your daily life better. You just feel better that you've done something, and that was exciting on one end, but at the same time rewarding, where you actually get paid in token for performing an action. And maybe one day at scale, you can switch and make this your day job almost. You just pick up those quests, help support those organizations, and you do all this work, around the world to support those organizations, to launch projects and whatnot. But you don't necessarily actually need to agree with the thesis, and that's our thinking now. So we start working really closely with projects in refi. We started working really closely, of course, with amazing people like Chad, yourself, who we've been lucky to find on our path and have as part of our community. But we have this understanding that we would want to appeal to a larger group of people, just like a game would, really, and that we need to interface with different types of organization, because we already have partnerships with organizations like BMW Foundation, and which are a little more structured, a little bit more corporate, have an incredible community and an incredible amount of insight, but wouldn't necessarily buy straight into refi. And at the same time, we want to kind of speak to like a gamer in their bedroom and their mom and so on. So that's why this, the thinking drove us to this idea of how about we just call it a future quest, and then becomes our common quest to fix the future.
I love it. And so it's a little bit D&D, a little bit Dungeons and Dragons, but appealing to those gamers, which I love. I think absolutely gamifying solutions, approaching this with joy adventure is really essential if we're really going to make the change that we need as a global society, a global culture. And you just launched and you did some really cool things. I'm really excited about this. I'm actually going to do a quote from your website because you're doing this like pre-mint thing. And, I'm not like deeply understanding all the NFT ins and outs, but this thing is really cool. I want to quote this, if you don't mind, for everybody listening, what it says on their website here for this pre-mint launch. It says, quote, Mother Nature saw it coming. She gave us Web3 and distributed powerful animal spirits across the world. Bind with one to begin your journey. The mighty dragon of Regen is the first of the vanguards to cross the portal to unite those willing to thrive. Now that's cool. I really think that's cool, bringing that sense of adventure and these animal spirits. Can you talk a little bit about what or who these vanguards are? And who is this mighty dragon of Regen?
I was wondering if anyone reads that paragraph.
I do. I read everything.
Everybody reads it.
So, well, the vanguards are a special group within our community that we're forming. Some of them are already assigned. This is tied to the way we've been raising money, and we will be raising money. It's a special group that we're tying. Most of those people are climate investors. So basically, what we're doing is we're forming this club of people who have a great view on what's happening and access to funds and so on. And this way, we want to drive the possibility of our quest raising money in a timely manner to kind of get accelerated to the max. So it's part of our strategy. It's also, they also come with the story, and each of them is unique. They will be the unique vanguards, so to speak, separate species. They're going to be coming to an auction at some point. Details will follow. However, now the first of the vanguards is the dragon, the mighty dragon of Regen. And the mighty dragon of Regen is the first one to that we're bringing. It's a serialized NFT that is split between all its holders, and then will become, in essence, kind of like a sub-DAO, where the holders will be able to elect representation into the Vanguards Club, and they will have various other perks, and that includes receiving something special that's going to come a bit later this year and enable access to the platform. I'd say priority access to the platform.
Very cool. Thank you. And so we are currently on time, but what should we expect from FutureQuest over the next year? And what's your vanguard? What's your animal sphere?
My animal spirit.
Yeah.
Let's start with the first question. I think what to expect from us is kind of what I talked about with regards to our impact strategy and how we're looking to pilot the different quests. I think our focus is really going to be to grow the community in a responsible way. We're unique from other, just to take it a step back, we're unique from other kind of Web3, so to speak, projects that you see out there, and that we were formed from an actual real community, as they say, in real life. I'm doing air quotes, but you can't see me. And then we decided to move it over onto that platform. And so it's interesting as you see other community projects, typically they start programmatically. So, in jargon, it just means that typically programs are created and then a community is formed. Whereas for us, we really went forward with the community first. So for us, it's really important to kind of maintain that engagement as we scale. So our focus is really going to be around that. We're going to fine tune our impact strategy to ensure that what we are looking to and then what we are looking to accelerate are really things that can truly move the needle when we think about correcting climate change. My spirit animal came to me, I think, in a vision quest. I don't know. It's still pretty unclear, but I'm pretty sure it's some type of feline, which I've been fighting for the last 5 years. I thought it was going to be a different creature. The most recent form of it was like some type of jaguar or panther. So that's where I am. I know what Matt's is because it's probably like the best NFT that we have so far. It's my favorite.
Should we guess? Should we wait and hold people in suspense until they see it, or Matt, you want to reveal?
Actually, let's not reveal it. Maybe we'll do a little surprise prize.
I love
which vanguard is Matt's spirit animal? If you can guess which one it is, we'll throw you a little surprise on the Discord.
That's great. Angela, I knew we'd get along. My spirit animal is also the jaguar, so no wonder we get along so well. So one last question for the two of you, and this is just a one-sentence ending question. I want to hear from Matt and then Angela as we wrap. What does a regenerative future mean for you?
Well, there's the regeneration and there's the sustaining, right? So regeneration future, I would love to think of it that it's something that starts basically this second and every moment for every one of us. And we regenerate till it's regenerated. So that's my understanding of it and how I see it. Basically, I feel like our role as entrepreneurs, anyone, as people in Web3 and outside in Web3, and people who pretty much work in any capacity anywhere should be thinking, okay, what can I do to start helping regenerate? And this is what we hope to start inspiring as well. Of course, like I mentioned earlier, it would be futile to expect that most people will jump on that bandwagon, but critical mass is enough. Just like with electric cars, you need 5%. It's basically critical mass for the entire country to turn to electric, right? Like it's happening in the US now. And so, the regeneration, I feel like it's a common effort that's happening now. There's many takes and approaches. I like to think, what is this sustainable future that's a bit more removed, that when let's say we've regenerated. And it's a fairly long story, but there is a certain level of harmony, right, which is instilled by common understanding, perhaps a level of technocratic solution to some degree, which allows us maintain balance and have an understanding of climate and how it works and intricacies of entanglement before different species that are remaining at that time. And we are able to steward this sort of stage of balance in a way that where we have allowed enough of the environment to thrive. We have cleaned what was possible. We've maintained the temperature to a degree that where the worst was prevented. And at this point, we're kind of sustaining it. We're evolving, we're developing. But at this point, we're also mining asteroids and we're on the moon and Mars. And the expansion, the progress, so to speak, which seems to be inevitable. There's a lot of people in this space calling for like the end of capitalism. I think there's an evolution of capitalism that is needed and will happen. I think the end would be a little, in its current shape, it will end, I think, inevitably, the way we're going. But I think many people are very idealistic about where would it go. My feeling is that in that future, we have the race of the nations, the race between the competition that seems to be so ingrained in our DNA, going out and happening, out there in the space and between others, allowing for abundance to some degree within the planet, and the understanding that the harmony is necessary for the well-being of our own species. And therefore, with this understanding, we maintain that. And I'm a big fan of E.O. Wilson and Half Earth and this kind of thinking. I think those things could be, we could start implementing them fairly soon. And, hopefully we've got some Herbingers all going there.
I think a regenerative future is really where we're able to go back to how we were before, where humans and nature actually existed in this very symbiotic and circular relationship. I think this is second sentence. I think that in order for us to create a regenerative future, we need to pull from ancient and indigenous wisdom to determine how we shape the future. So I think it's as simple as that. I don't think it takes any more words.
Thank you very much. And thank you all for participating in this podcast.
Thank you, Chad. This was great and very much looking forward to the upcoming ones.
Well, that's it for today's episode of Chad's Climate Quest. Stay tuned for our next episode when I will be talking to another planetary-grade thinker and doer, implementing real solutions to create a regenerative future. Thank you all for joining us today. I'm thrilled to welcome you on my Climate Quest.